Yo, hello! We are going to be talking about the metagame from this past first week of the Scarlet Violet Series 1 VGC. Most notably, we've had a lot of ladder going on, we've had a lot of this general tournaments, and really our first major tournament with the Limitless VGC open, and they had a big prize pool, $1,000, and a lot of entrants, multiple top players like Wolfie. You had Aaron Trailer, who we're looking at the footage from now, and we also had FEDECAMPO, Joe UX9. You have basically any player you could think of at the top of the game was in this Limitless tournament. So it is really the first big marker of really this is how the Scarlet and Violet VGC metagame might be going and how it could evolve in the future, and we'll be looking at that most notably. But first off, we'll be talking about the Victory Roads Stuttgart side event tournament. And the Stuttgart side event tournament was really like, this showed some of the power of a concept that actually will be really relevant in when we go to the Limitless tournament too. But Marcus Statter ultimately took that tournament home using a team of Gholdengo, Garchomp, Maushold, Annihilate, Murkrow, and Hydreigon. Notably, Hydreigon Gholdengo is really the concept that we'll be seeing a lot through a lot of the top teams this weekend, as most top players end up choosing this, use this concept of like Gholdengo plus Hydreigon plus Murkrow, and using Tailwind, using Haze to make sure your Make It Rain drops don't happen, and really just take advantage of the sheer power. This one, of course, having some interesting text with like Maushold as like a redirection option that could also just kill something with Population Bomb, and along with Annihilate as well, with Final Gambit and its ridiculous HP stat, so it can suicide a Pokemon, and then you just bring your Gholdengo in and try to sweep with that, and then your standard Garchomp as well. Notably, Hydreigon is going to be on a lot of these teams with like Steel typing, Poison typing, and even Fire typing from Hamster Mania. Hamster Mania's team was also someone who like originally had this concept on ladder that Marcus and some of these other people actually got their idea from, so that will be pretty notable to talk about. But yeah, first of all, we will go ahead and just talk about the Limitless Day 1 usage. As you can see this here, the Garchomp is everywhere right now. The premier Pokemon in the format, this Earthquake, very fast, has Dragon Claw, can have Rock Slide too, Swords Dance plus Clear Amulet setup is very hard to stop, and it's really the big Pokemon that this abuses Clear Amulet to get the most, this really maximum usage out of it. You'll see here as well, no one was shy to the advancement of Murkrow, with 124 Murkrow, 164 Gholdengo. And that really just shows how we've generally this all have adapted to this kind of metagame trend. And even if it's like it's not Murkrow, there were some Hydreigons that used Tailwind instead. There was Talonflames that popped up occasionally. In general, this Murkrow being this Tailwind plus Gholdengo being about everywhere really, and that's notable as we see Gholdengo actually being the #1 Pokemon in usage in Top Cut, Garchomp #2, Hydreigon #3, and Hydreigon really is just the big winner in this weekend in general. And then you see a lot of notable Pokemon with like Meowscarada and Tyranitar, Grimmsnarl as well there. A lot of people looking for dark types to stop Psy Spam, because before this tournament, before we got the metagame upgrade to this kind of like Hydreigon offense, originally the meta was like situated with a lot of Armarouge and Indeedee, but Hydreigon kind of answers as this like kind of perfect checkmate. Some even going as far as having like Spec Snarl so they can get around the redirection of Indeedee and kind of this guarantee that they get the Snarl off and force to Make It Rain, and that will actually just set up a KO on Armarouge no matter what it does. And that's something that has proven to be like very notable in this early phases of the metagame. And notably, we see here as all the teams from the Top Cut from the Limitless tournament. And they had a day 2 switch as well, so we got like 35. The Gholdengos, the Dragapults, the Ghosts, the Gengars. This is a general, even like from like Joe UX9 and Ray, we actually see Skeledirge. Skeledirge also is a Pokemon that showed up a little bit because of its ability to just have Unaware and Natural Bulk, making it a great Pokemon to potentially just stall up through games, and when it actually terrestrializes into grass can prove to be a surprisingly good matchup into Dondozo, which Dondozo is another concept we actually saw a fair bit, and at the top too. Like, I think most notably here, the Dondozo theme from River Davis, as we saw this like Talonflame, Gholdengo, Hydreigon, Garchomp, but instead of this facilitating this Coralfin extra option in Dondozo and Tatsugiri, so it can play this kind of Tailwind style similar to like FEDECAMPO'S team, but it can also just do its own like Dondozo mode to this back up on. And I think that's the general idea of how Dondozo will typically try to play. As you can see there, this Dondozo will have like a set amount of Pokemon that can work on their own, and then they'll just have it in the back and be able to set up through that. And Aaron Trailer's team notably had pretty good uses on that as well, as we just see the Hydreigon as a Tailwind setter, and you just have Dondozo, Sylveon, Armarouge, Meowscarada, all Pokemon that are like uniquely offensive in their own right and able to take pretty significant value. I'd say pretty significant value. As you can see, you had the Trick Room. You really did take advantage of Meowscarada's like unique tech moves, which this is something we actually talked about in our little video we did on Meowscarada. Meowscarada gets like a ridiculous amount of moves that you would not think it would have. It even has access to like Toxic Spikes, has access to Trick Room, Ally Switch, and Aaron is really the first one who really just takes advantage of some of the unique tech moves that Meowscarada offers. A lot of the Meowscarada in this tournament were actually choice banded and using Protean plus Play Rough plus like U-turn and kind of playing this weird defensive style. But I think like Meowscarada with the Focus Sash and acting kind of as like a Suedo Urshifu and using a little bit of the support moves to like surprise and set up KOs in its own right is very effective. And it's cool to see that from Aaron Trailer as well. And notably as well, we see the winning team ultimately with the core of like Dragonite, Hydreigon plus 3 Ghosts and then Murkrow. Ghost types are something that we're going to see a lot in this general metagame. We'll be going over that in a bit. But yeah, before this tournament, this is one of the more notable teams to talk about. Because of how quickly this tournament like showed up, people were kind of forced to use a lot of rental teams in some stages, and this is really the premier rental team that got the most usage out of all of them. Not many of those rentals actually were able to show up in Top Cut. As you can see, Lele BK was really the only rental to make the top 8, and there was like 30 people who used it, and I actually used it myself as well. But Suika's team is right here. Basically, one of the early concepts is this Murkrow plus Gholdengo plus Hydreigon, though notably using Breloom. And Breloom has the ability to like Mach Punch and Spore to help against opposing Hydreigon matchups and help against general threats, and this be a very powerful Pokemon. So credits to Suika for that. And yeah, that's we also have the team from Aaron Trailer, a little rental here they can just go ahead and take. And Overgrow, of course, giving the damage boost is why you see it on instead of Protean, and take advantage of the Sash as well. And this is the team from FEDECAMPO who will be doing a video on it. Unfortunately, they do not have the rental code up at the time of this recording. But since they will be doing a video, we'll be linking their channel as well, and you'll be able to check out their team in there. And then this was the ultimate top cut from VGC Pace that you can see the little bracket. And notably as well, I think this is another thing worth talking about from Gahaku actually, and from Paulo Fee, is the use of Gallade. And why I think Gallade is actually a pretty important Pokemon here, and we can go back to it. You see that this is the development of like Hydreigon, for one. So this looking for fighting types in interesting places is actually pretty important. And Annihilape is a very good fighting type in its own right too, but it tends to act as like a choice scarf this final Gambitmon. And you can see the ability Sharpness, so any move with like a cut will do bonus damage, taking advantage of Psychic Cut, Sacred Sword, and using Gallade's pretty similar to like how Meowscarada actually operates, where you have this Sash and you use this tech move, and you take advantage of like this, the power of Sharpness, Sacred Sword, Psycho Cut, and the Surprise Trick Room. And that really just adds to like a flexible adaptation, because let's say if you're in the mirror versus like Gholdengo Murkrow, but they don't know you have like Trick Room on the Gallade, you can go like Gholdengo Gallade, you can set your Trick Room thanks to your Sash, and you'll survive the turn. And then you can just go Gholdengo in the back and then get this quick make it rain And similarly, you can also lead Annihilate Gallade, go Trick Room, this final Gambit something with Annihilate. And then Gholdengo is not really the fastest Pokemon, so you're able to kind of get this setup going where you just have Trick Room up, get Gholdengo, try to sweep and make it rain if your Tailwind mode doesn't actually work out, or if your opponent's just really fast. And I think that's something that is pretty notable, is just having this surprisable Trick Room option on Pokemon like Gallade, like Meowscarada. So they can really just change the tide of the game at the drop of a hat. And that's something as well, that's having the ability to put a fighting type here is in itself very valuable with the rise of Hydreigon, the rise of all these dark types to answer the side spam in general. And notably, now that we've went through that, we can talk about this really the Pokemon that had the most to gain here. Of course, there's the Dondozo team from Unreality, the FEDECAMPO Murkrow, Gholdengo, Dragonite team. And even Grim Balance from Geo is actually the last thing I really want to talk about, because Killer Bear's team, most notably, really has this kind of defensive core mindset, but with a lot of setup mons. It's notably using 3-attack Life Orb Garchomp instead of Swordsdance setup to try to give it more this immediate battle prowess, and this understanding that with how common Clear Amulet Garchomp is, Arcanine actually doesn't want to just go into Garchomp in the first place anymore, because it could just have Clear Amulet, you just get intimidated, and then there's this no intimidate, you just get earthquaked, and it's all of a sudden really bad for you. And this led to like him ultimately deciding to go Life Orb instead of Clear Amulet, and you see the Specs, this the bulky Corv, the Dragonant Cetar, the Gastrodon with Clear Smog to break any like setup stuff like Dondozo. And then the Moongus with like Spore and Clear Smog is another option. The Storm Drain. That's a general like really solid balanced team that has like significant answers to like a lot of the meta. Also notably having counter Tailwind. So if it were to go up against like a Murkrow game, or if it were to go up against any really other notable Pokemon, then it will always have this counter Tailwind to kind of respond to any option the opponent may have for them. And that's just something that's like generally pretty good. So like even if Tailwind Pokemon if your Tailwind isn't as fast as Murkrow, if Murkrow is going to quick Tailwind on you turn 1, then just having the ability to this quick counter Tailwind and respond to that Tailwind, even if you're not necessarily going to have it first, it's still this real valuable in trades. Like we'll see Pokemon like Kilowattrel, for example, and Pokemon like even Bravery, even Hydreigon, for example. We saw this with like Wolf Glick ultimately ran a team here in this tournament where he used Tailwind Hydreigon. We can look at that as well. He ultimately did not make it to top cut, but he did have a very interesting team where he also took advantage of some of Meowscarada's techs. But he was one who actually used Choice Band and took care of like Overgrow instead of Protean, because he had Flower knockoff. There was no real use to putting Protean on this set because he wasn't using Poliwrath, which is something I generally agree with. And he was notably the highest placing side spam user too, with Indeedee, Armarouge, Mousehold, Hydreigon with a Hobbin Berry, so it can surprise opposing Hydreigons, and this is the Tailwind. But in general, that's a theme that you'll see a lot more as the meta like progresses. Even if you don't have Murkrow, just having your own Tailwind against Murkrow is more than enough to just have significant value. Because like there's one flaw in how Gholdengo actually plays, and that's Gholdengo is just like not very fast. It's 84. It's like decent speed. But if your opponent has counter Tailwind and with like a Garchomp next to it, so like let's say if you go Garchomp Kilowattrel, for example, both Garchomp and Kilowattrel are significantly faster than Gholdengo. So this having the Earthquake next to Kilowattrel would functionally just help you eliminate Gholdengo in itself. And Kilowattrel also resists Gholdengo. It could even quick like Eerie Impulse into it. There's a lot of fair options. And it could also this quick Thunderbolt to eliminate Murkrow as well. But yeah, in general, because of like how Murkrow teams work, this having like these random Tailwind Pokemon that are like decently fast in their own right, but can just set Tailwind and like this return is this more than valuable enough to really act as a bit of a counter to them. And we'll see that more as we go on. Not the most right now, but this ability to have like the counter Tailwind is generally pretty important. and a trend that I expect to continue. And yeah, the general typings that I think are important to notice is if you look at like the top cut of the teams, you'll notice a lot of these teams actually have a lot of repeat typings. Like the first place team has 3 ghost types, 2 dragon types, 2 dark types. And that's a common trend that you'll notice. The double dragons with Garchomp, Hydreigon, some occasional double ghosts we see with Rishi actually using Skeleturge and Annihilate. The dark with and the more Hydreigon, Murkrow, double dark, double dragon, double ghost. And that's just a common trend, these overlapping typings in a lot of teams. And Terrasolizing, of course, one of the more notable things about what it does is Terrasolizing allows you to be a little less punished for having these overlap typings. And these overlap typings are very valuable in their own ways, with, as of course, as I said earlier, the rise of like Scythe Spam before this tournament, how like Gholdengo is popular too. So having all these dark types was generally pretty good. And we'll see like all these dark type Pokemon, and people really did look for dark types in a lot of places. We saw Meowscarada. There was like some King Gambits in the tournament. Tyranitar started to show up with like Geo as well. And there's like a lot of dark types that I think have really just seen a lot of exploration with them. And I do think even Pokemon like, let's say, Weavile actually have a place in this kind of meta. Because Weavile is one of the few Pokemon that can like Ice Shard, just kill Murkrow before it can move, and also has access to Fake Out. Makes it a pretty good Pokemon as well. And I think that's like the general theme. We'll see a lot of people look for dark types in different places, however they can. I don't think it'll ever go as far as like low kicks, but that is a Pokemon. Yeah, that is a Pokemon. But yeah, that's in general. We'll see a lot of like people experiment with dark types. I imagine Umbreon might see some play at some point. This is because Umbreon acts as this kind of this very defensive Pokemon. Like Hydreigon Gholdengo is not going to break an Umbreon at all, allowing Umbreon to sit in front of it and quick Snarl. And the next typing I really want to talk about here is the Ghost typing. And Ghost type Pokemon are this like really valuable in general in this metagame, and something that we'll see get a fair bit of play. Because like with Dark types, you actually have with Ghost types, you actually have a lot of general this application that's pretty useful. Because we saw Dragonite is a very popular Pokemon. The ability to just not get faked out and not get E-speeded is just in general pretty good. Because Dragonite has still this powerful breaking potential, where with its Choice Band E-speed, it can still just break teams. And then just having a Ghost type that's be immune to that, and Ghost types also allow you to hit Gholdengo. Very decent immunities, decent defense bulk, and this pretty good Pokemon. Like Annihilate, for example, has like some completely unique niches with like Rage Fist, bulk up, and you can play this like very defensive, the stack Rage Fist, get bulky, kind of take over games. Ceruledge has this like grass typing synergy where you can turn grass, use bulk up, take advantage of Clear Amulet, and play this very bulky kind of sustain style off of Bitter Blade. Gengar is a very fast like Sash Mon, where you can just have Sash, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Icy Wind. And it also has access to another thing that is pretty useful for like your own Gholdengo, and that is simply the move Haze. As Haze just eliminates all stat changes, also operates as a easy way to answer to Dondozo. And Gengar goes a bit farther as well, because as we were talking about Sash Trick Room Mons, Gengar is another Sash Trick Room Pokemon. You can run Taunt as well, you can run Will-O-Wisp. Gengar truly this has like a lot of options of tech moves, all of which are like generally pretty valuable in this kind of metagame. And we'll see a fair bit of play from Gengar, and like Gengar ultimately winning the tournament as well in this one from FEDECAMPO'S list. As you can see again, notably using Hypnosis instead to act as kind of like this is Suicide Mod. If you're in a bad scenario, this quick Hypnosis. If Hypnosis works, good, and you're in a really, really powerful position. As Fast Sleep is very strong. As we saw this in the Dynamax metagame, even though the metagame like has slowed down a lot, if you do this throughout Hypnosises, sometimes it just works. Sometimes it just works. And that's something that we'll just see in general. Really, this proved to have a lot of value. And notably here, we also see the Dragon typing. And there's really only 3 dragon types I wanted to highlight here, though I do think Pokemon like Salamence are still like fairly interesting. But ultimately, the dragon types here being Garchomp, where you take advantage of like Clear Amulet, the Earthquake, the Rock Slides, the Swords Dance. Garchomp is really the premier Pokemon in the metagame right now. This having the ability to use its 252 speed, 252 attack, this pure damage, pure power, and it's very hard to go through as there's not many Pokemon faster than 102 speed, and not many Pokemon that can actually deal with Garchomp in an effective manner. And then Hydreigon is the Pokemon that really has taken off after this format, this whole week we went through. Where Hydreigon notably can run 3 different Terra types, Fire with Heat Wave, you can run Poison with Terra Blast, and then you can also run like Snarl here. And this was like an easy example set, Dark Pulse, Draco, Terra Blast, Snarl. And this set really just acts as the perfect answer to Psy Spam, as you just have Snarl to get around in DD redirection, you have Snarl to hit Armarouge, and this hit Gholdengo, get these special drops. It acts as kind of a decent answer to a lot of the metagame, and Hydreigon isn't even limited to just that, having access to Tailwind, Dark Pulse, Draco as well. You can play this kind of defensive set. That's not bad either. Hydreigon also has like AV, and this is a set that's like pretty fun as well. That honestly I kind of underrated. I was not very high on Hydreigon, but I have to admit it is in fact a very good Pokemon in this metagame. And you can also run like Hydreigon with a Life Orb and just have it have 3 attack plus Tailwind. And this flexibility is this like really powerful asset to Hydreigon, as it's really just a Pokemon that can use so many different Terra typings in so many different sets, all to like very decent manner. Because like, let's say you're against a Hydreigon that's Steel, right? Then you just want to hit it with a fighting move. But then what if the Hydreigon's actually this poison and it resists your fighting move now, and all of a sudden you're in this very weird spot because you try to Mach Punch Hydreigon. And Hydreigon's really the premier Pokemon of this thing's can really take advantage of terrestrializing, in part thanks to its levitate ability. Like if you go poison on the Hydreigon, you only have 1 weakness in Psychic. If you go Steel, you only have like 2 weaknesses in Fire and Fighting. And this allows Hydreigon to really take advantage of these typings to its fullest thanks to the use of its ability and unique in its powerful coverage, its great offensive typing, its great bulk. Hydreigon's really the perfect all-rounder to take advantage of terrestrializing in a lot of different ways. And then for the final dragon type, this one's very simple. Very, very simple indeed. Like, is this Dragonite, you go Terra Normal and you quick Extreme Speed. Even without Chien Pal, Terra Normal E-Speed is this really powerful and something that will always like have some kind of place. Though notable, you do have to look a bit into the dark type category just to try to actually give yourself answers. Whether you use Hydreigon with Dragonite, whether you use you could even use all 3 of these dragons together, honestly, or use like Meowscarada, or as we talked about a little bit, Weavile potentially, but Meowscarada is a better offensive dark type. Because you do want something that can actually take care of like Indeedee stuff, so you're allowed to quick Terra Normal E-Speed with your Choice Band and pop off. And also notably Ice Spinner support is very valuable, though you could use Ice Spinner on Dragonite itself actually, which is a pretty fun set with AV. Or you can just go like a very bulky Dragonite and you always have the option to go Terra E-Speed, and you can use Ice Spinner to get rid of Side Terrain to get rid of your really big counter to that set. And then finally, I really want to talk about the big losers of this week, which we've been going over a lot. This is the rise of powerful dark type Pokemon. And thanks to the rise of this powerful dark type Pokemon, it goes without saying, but these Indeedees, these Armarouge, are a lot worse when we just see a rise of dark types that just KO them. And I actually think Armarouge, instead of its normal set of Terra Grass, I think Armarouge might have to innovate soon and actually choose to go Terra Fighting. And why Terra Fighting is notable is you're just able to turn the head on all these dark type Pokemon. And this format really does have a lot of very powerful dark type Pokemon that are getting a lot of uses to counter Psy Spam. So you can really just turn the matchup on the table with access to Terra Fighting. You can even run Aura Spear, Trick Room, Heat Wave. Oh wait, the fire move. What's the fire move on this thing? I know it has like fire CC as its armor cannon. There it is. And you have expanding force. And this is like a potential set that could turn matchups in ways that wouldn't necessarily be expected. And that's really powerful in its own right. And even if you don't do that, I do still think the grass Armarouge set is still like this very powerful. And if not, you can also go Terra Psychic. This pure offensive is really good too. Like Armarouge just has this enough stats where it's able to play really whatever style that you may want it to play. Because like 75, while not the greatest speed ever, if you put that in Tailwind, that's like more than decent enough, right? And that's something that we'll see pop up occasionally, as Armarouge this has a lot of flexible play styles. And it also has access to wide guard, so you do have ways around like the Snarl tech, and you can like wide guard the Snarl, wide guard the Earthquakes in the metagame, wide guard the Make It Rains, and go around it that way as well. And the next Pokemon I want to talk about really that's taking a big watch was Garganacl. And Garganacl is still like a really good Pokemon, but really why I say it takes a major loss is simply because of Gholdengo. Gholdengo really destroys it with its very powerful special attack, its Make It Rains. It forces Garga to always use this terrestrialization, whether that be the grass, whether that be a steel or ghost. And when Garga is forced to this always terrestrialize each game, that puts you in a very awkward position. And when you try to stall Pokemon like Hydreigon, Pokemon like the rise of Meowscaradas, the rise of Gholdengo, when you try to stall all these Pokemon, it's actually pretty hard because like Garga, even if you invest fully in special, it's going to get worn down by these very powerful special type attackers that are in the metagame right now. So Garga is not really the most efficient Pokemon to run, though it still can work if you like facilitate it with Grim and you facilitate it with enough answers to Gholdengo and all these very powerful special attackers. Garga can still work. It's just a Pokemon that is very much seeing a worse day than it was day one, because this Pokemon was on really about every team day one and took advantage of like Wo Chien and all of the Ruination Dark types. And without those Ruin Dark types to limit special attackers, it does become a bit worse. Like there's no Tinglu. You can't just have like Tinglu Garga and go like full bulk and then just set up your iron defenses and be like basically unkillable because of that 25 drop, and then use like Arcanine to facilitate it. That strat doesn't exist anymore without Tinglu around, so you have to use like less effective options. Though of course like you can still just have Grim and play very defensive and slow, but as well, not to mention that kind of strategy becomes a bit more limited when you get into tournament gameplay as well. Because let's say someone's in like a 1v4 and Garga, if Garga played every turn out, would this like win in some of those scenarios even? You get in the 1v3, they can't break the Garga. The opponent can just choose to like timer stall you, quick protect, start switching, and play even slower until eventually they just win off of timer to beat Garga instead. And that's something that's like, that's very scary for it, and very, very tough to actually deal with. I think that's something that is just going to prove to be like very notable in the metagame as in general. And we also see with like Arcanine here. Arcanine is really the final Pokemon I wanted to talk about, because I think Arcanine really shows off the power of Clear Amulet. Because like Arcanine, I think in general is still just a really good Pokemon. Intimidate's still good, Flare was E-Speed. Well, like it's hard to say Arcanine's ever going to be a bad Pokemon really. But Arcanine did really see a significant nerf, and Intimidate value did in general. Because like, let's look at like this Defiant Pokemon. Premier Physical Threat, Annihilate. If this has Defiant. Premier Physical Threat, Dragonite. This has Inner Focus. And there's a lot of examples like that. Even the best physical Pokemon in the format right now runs Clear Amulet. That prevents stat lowering. It's also a ground type, so it checks Arcanine. So that makes Arcanine's usage take a dramatic drop. And that's something that's really shown its head. As we're also seeing a lot of experimentation with Mons like Skeledirge. Because even though Skeledirge doesn't have Intimidate, it has Unaware. And if people are going to be boosting and boosting and boosting with stuff, and you can't really drop them because they have a Clear Amulet, you might as well be unaware, so their boost just doesn't matter anymore. And then you have offensively Pokemon like Rotom Heat as well, the Fire Electric type, Specs. But there's a lot of fire types that are really able to show their best kind of like hand here. Because Arcanine's Intimidate is really just getting less value than it normally would. And even if we look farther down, there's Pokemon like Volcarona that are like kind of interesting. Like, there's just so many fire types that exist, even if they don't have Intimidate, have some other form of utility that becomes more valuable when you consider that Clear Amulet exists and there's a lot of Inner Focus powerful attacker. You have Defiant powerful attackers. And since that's the thing, Arcanine becomes a bit less valuable. Not to mention, even that, there's still Pokemon like Kilowattrel that haven't really shown their place enough yet, but still exist enough to be like something that you should generally be pretty concerned of. Which really this makes Arcanine and DD, Garga, and Armarouge just the biggest losers this week in general. I think that's really all I had to talk about today. It was a bit of a rambling. We were a bit rambling, but I hope this was like enjoyable content to give you kind of an idea of what's like this in general good in this metagame and what's like worth using. I want to have like a general this like concept video each week I can. And we'll just call it like Metagame Monday and try to go about it like that. And if you like this kind of content, you can of course like leave a comment on like what metagame stuff you want to see, what different stuff you want to see, and all that as well. And I'll be reading all bits of it. But yeah, thank you to Unreality for the footage. I'll be linking like all the in the description a lot of these resources you can use. You can use like VGC Pace, you can use Victory Road, because there's also finally, and this is really the final thing that we were going to talk about today, there are 2 tournaments that will be happening on this weekend here. There will be 2 tournaments happening. There's the Wide League, and there's the Victory Road tournament. Both of which are going to be pretty massive, I feel. Pretty massive. As we see here. The Wide League tournament. And we'll have the links in the description to these as well, with all the registration links and all that. But yeah, this is a big one, $900 in prizes, $1,100 if we hit 200 registrations, multiple sponsors, all that. And we also have a Victory Road with an entry fee tournament. And this is pretty noticeable as well. And yeah, that's just the general idea. And I think that would be all. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And let us know what metagame trends you expect to really just pop off. I'm thinking that a lot of people will be looking at like fighting types in general, whether that be Breloom, Tauros, and all that. There's in general a lot more fighting types I expect to see. And yeah, later.